Good morning, everybody. This is Carrie Getz with Strategicom, and we are back with another episode of our podcast series on careers in the data center and tech industry for women, trades, and vets. And today we are talking with Jeff Clark with Mashad Cooley Erickson about his path into the industry, which is a bit different than the typical go get a degree, jump into this industry. So, Jeff, with that, I'll let you introduce yourself and a little bit about your company, and then we'll talk about your journey.
Sounds great. Thanks, Carrie. Yes, again, my name is Jeff Clark. I am by title, a principal shareholder, which means I own part of the company, of a company called Mashad Cooley Erickson. We are a consulting engineering firm. So we design and manage construction of everything from data centers to laboratories to commercial buildings to just about anything. So thank you for the introduction.
Absolutely. And so tell everybody where you're located.
So we're located in Minneapolis, Minnesota, home of the bold North.
Home of the very cold winters. No, thank you.
The opposite of your territory. So
Exactly. So tell us a little bit about kind of how you got into this industry and how you ended up owning a piece of this company. What was your journey like, and how did you start out? And did you really even think about being in this industry to start with?
Yeah, really good question. So I guess you could say my industry journey really started as in my childhood. I was actually, to a detriment. I drew a lot. I drew a lot of pictures of buildings and army tanks and Air Force jets and stuff when I should have been studying, to the point that I actually got several one-on-one parent-teacher conferences to talk about this distraction. I,
Uh-oh.
I was I was also notorious for taking things apart to see how they worked, but not able to put them back together. So my parents could tell you we replaced a lot of things growing up because of this passion. But that's kind of really where it started. And you could kind of fast forward now into when I was in high school. I was pretty into a lot of the hands-on coursework. So things like metal shop, woodworking, even in the automotive group, like how to fix a car, just how stuff worked mechanically always fascinated me. So I'm sitting there and it's career day. So they have a bunch of the different colleges, and the Army and the Navy and the Air Force and the Marines were all at the school in the gym. And they had tables for each one of them. And I'm looking around the room, and I'm not one for lines. So I see there's this booth of this outfit. They're called Dunwoody Institute. So they're a local, very well-known local technical school. So they focus on 2-year degrees. And I see no line. And I walk over there and I strike up a conversation. I said, "This is interesting. I've heard of you guys. I had family members go here, very reputable place. Like, tell me what you got." And we kind of go through it. And I said, "Well, I want something I can draw and one that makes lots of money." And they said, "We've got the perfect course for you." And it was a course called Mechanical Design. So really what it was is it was a course focused on design of HVAC, so heating, ventilation, air conditioning, plumbing, and basically systems that make a building livable. I said, "Sign me up. I get to draw." And it was at that time the entire industry was converting over from back in the days. Everybody's seen a blueprint. They're very well known in movies. We don't really use them anymore. It's a dead technology. But those were all created with hand-drawn drawings. So pencil, in some cases ink. You would literally draw like they do in the movies, erase things when you screwed up. Well, the industry was converting over to computer-aided design, also known as CAD. And that's where I tie in my piece about loving to draw stuff as a kid. I got into CAD in high school, and it was really kind of what drew me. That's really was my path into this industry. Is I loved computer-aided design. And I thought, wow, this is a course. It only takes me 2 years to get through, and I can get a good job right after. So I said, sign me up. So there I went. So I did that. I took the course and did that for 2 years, and actually had a job, part-time job, basically the second half of the first year. So I was actually working for an engineering firm, obviously an entry-level position, doing basic drafting tasks in CAD and such, and did that all the way through graduation. And then immediately, basically the day after I graduated, I was given a full-time position with the firm that I was first working for.
Nice.
So
And I think that's really important to talk about. In this country, I think we've done kind of a bad job of supporting people in 2-year degrees and trades, and realize, if it weren't for trades and a lot of those people with 2-year degrees, nothing would get built. So
yeah,
there's
exactly.
certainly, lots of paths into the industry. So when you started your job, kind of what got you from there to owning the joint?
Yeah, a good question. So kind of when you start off, and it's even true today, you really have to learn the tools. And in an engineering firm, the lifeblood of the company that actually makes the drawings is the CAD system. So you really got to learn CAD. Now, the course I went to, at least at that time, gave you a basic overview as part of the curriculum. Fast forward to now, they spend a lot more time in that 2-year program actually teaching you the CAD system. And really, CAD is a very generalistic term, and it's a general program. So the most common CAD program people use is called AutoCAD. And that AutoCAD is used by all sorts of industries, not just ours. So meaning out of the box, it's very vanilla. And for each industry that utilizes it's usually heavily customized. So one of the issues you deal with folks maybe that went to a 4-year institution or went to a kind of a more traditional engineering schools, they don't really teach a CAD. So you kind of have to come in first and you have to really learn the tool. Um, Nowadays, we've actually switched. The industry has made yet another change. And we're pretty much always using another platform that's made by the same company, but it's called Revit. And the big jump there is that we went from 2D to 3D.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people realize that a lot of the simulations you see on TV and on the internet and that kind of thing actually come out of those CAD packages. So it's not just building drawings and HVAC systems and detail drawings and architectural drawings, but all the way down to the renderings and where the light hits a model to make it shine real pretty and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it really is an amazing package you can do a lot of stuff with.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the kind of way we kind of how we use it now is Revit is really the nuts and bolts. So it draws all of the systems, it draws the cooling units, it draws the electrical gear, it draws the ductwork and piping, think all those different things. And then we use another package, and it's actually we use a package that a lot of the Hollywood special effects companies use. We obviously don't use it to the level that they do it, but we then take that, and that's really what makes or makes the design sort of come to life. And how we use it as being mechanical and electrical engineers is really kind of where our stuff is generally seen as an accomplishment if it's not seen or heard, right? Because it's behind the scenes doing things to support the building. So we really will focus on like really heavy mechanical and electrical spaces. So like big electrical rooms that have switchgear and generators and UPS systems, or a mechanical room that's full of boilers and chillers and things of that nature. But it's really nice to be able to not only present something like that so that folks uh, can really visualize. You get to see it before it's built. And really, that's where the next big jump is going to come in our industry, and it's already begun. And it's really going again. I said we went from manual to 2D CAD to now 3D CAD. The next jump is VR, or virtual reality, or in many cases they call it augmented reality. So the goggles that you've seen that really the gaming industry is pushing forward, we're embracing that technology too. Because again, what we're really getting into is what I'll call virtual construction. And to me, that's the real draw. I mean, think about that, kind of being able to build stuff virtually. I don't know. Me liking to take stuff apart, I always thought about, wow, it'd be really kind of cool to really build this. So you're literally building it visually, which again is not, you're not having to come up with kind of these designs from scratch. You're literally able to build it into the actually build ductwork and piping with your hands with gloves and goggles on.
A lot of people don't realize that every company has CAD models. Every company has their Revit models. And, it's sort of like going and getting red Legos from this company and blue Legos from this company and green Legos from this company, and then putting them all together in a multicolor building. And so, literally, everybody that has a physical piece that goes in this space, there's either a 2D or a 3D model to make that happen. And from a construction perspective, it's really invaluable because it eliminates waste. It lets people know down to very, very precise increments, exactly how long a pipe should be, where the bends should be, what the clearances are to make sure that, in the construction phase, there's not a whole lot of, uh-oh, we didn't think that was going to fit.
Right. Yeah, we're doing a lot of that, and we call it clash detection, or again, virtual coordination. So again, it's when we work on a project, it's not just our company, it's many companies, several companies, design partners that do various parts to make a building become reality. So we'll work with a structural engineer who designs all the beams and planks, joists, things of that nature. Obviously, the architect is the one everybody knows because they're always you see them in a lot of movies. They're kind of the hero, and but that's something that people can recognize, because when you see a building, you see the beauty of it, at least on the outside. The inside, and the architect is responsible for that. And then you have all sorts of other consultants, like you get into some of the, at least nowadays with modern technology, with the Internet of Things and smart buildings. And the point is that so each one of these different systems or trades is being designed by a different company. Well, all of these things have to go in the same volumes or zones, right? So what we do is everybody takes what we call our model portion of that building. We put it all into one model, right? We have computer software that allows us to do what's called a clash detection, where it's looking for when two objects are intersecting, because obviously you can't have two things intersecting and taking the same space. So it's a really neat process, and it's cutting down on schedule. It's taking less time to build buildings with this. It's cutting down on the amount of errors and conflicts that occur in the field between different systems. So again, we've already made huge strides with this, and I can't wait to see what we do when we get into the virtual and augmented reality.
So, how do your customers react to the virtual reality?
They're pretty. It's one of those things that at least now, again, different companies are at different places with it right now. And again, I think everybody at minimum is heavily intrigued by the technology. But of course, at least from the client side, they're all probably looking at it like, wow, that looks really expensive. What's it going to cost me? But again, like the way that I know we look at it, it's like, again, we, for the most part, sell one sort of virtual commodity. We sell time, right? So everything we do is by the hour. So again, for us, if we can use a technology that maybe has a first cost investment, but overall it's going to save us time, well, that's actually offering value to the client. So the stuff that we have done has really been fascinating. We focused, at least on the get-go here, with what we call laser scanning, which is a really neat technology. So you use a device that actually literally will go around the room, and it'll actually use a laser and a camera, and it actually will build a model of what it sees, right? So if, let's say, for example, we're going to go into a project, and we're going to make some changes to like a really heavily congested mechanical room. So it's a room full of pipes and ducts and boxes and conduit and all this stuff. And we're like, oh gosh, how are we going to get all this stuff to fit in here? Well, we use this laser scanning technique to go through and scan and get very precise dimensions on all of the existing objects, right? So then when we go to design in the new infrastructure that we're replacing, we know where we have to run the pipes and ducts and things like that so they don't collide with the stuff that's there. And I know that from the owner perspective has been very well received, because number one, they get a savings from us, because it actually takes us less time to do it that way than it is to have engineers go out to the field and literally go
Tape
through
measures.
and take all those measurements. And again, when you're measuring stuff in 3 dimensions, and especially you're talking about, we do, piping that can be really hot or really high up in the air, and there's, electrical stuff all over the room. You got to be careful with the metal tape measure so you don't touch the metal tape measure on that. So it's actually not only a time saver, but it's a safety issue too, that really cuts down risk with that. So
So we got a little sidetracked there, but tell us how you ended up owning the place.
yeah, good question. So I attribute sort of my really my passion. I don't want to call it my skill set, but it was really my passion for CAD for me that really kind of I thought accelerated my career because it was something I took to heart. It was something I cared a lot about, and it's something I really enjoyed doing. So I did everything I could to learn about the CAD system and the way CAD works. And eventually, at my first company, I ended up being sort of the de facto CAD manager, development manager for the CAD system, and put a lot of time into actually developing that, again, customized system that the company used. So to me, it was like that was a way to get noticed in a company full of lots of people. It was like, wow, Jeff's really good with this CAD stuff. Wow, he's a go-getter with that. So I think that's really what allowed me to kind of um, move forward pretty quickly in my career. And then I um, was at my first company for about 9 years, and then I had an opportunity to go work for now my current company. So I took that job and came in, and I at that point in time was very interested in doing healthcare work. Um, I've got family members that are in the medical field, and for them, they don't mind the gore and stuff. But for me, I have kind of a weak stomach when it comes to that stuff. But I really had a passion for doing these healthcare hospital projects and things because that when you got all done with it, you're like, I did my part to really help people, right? And I got a lot of it was very rewarding for me to do that kind of project. So I did a bunch of pretty significant healthcare projects, and again, that allowed me to kind of get a little bit forward, at least on the engineering side and management side of things. And then I got to a point in my career, I said, I'm this 2-year degree has taken me a long ways, but this is an engineering company. We do engineering, and I'm not an engineer yet. So at that point in time, this was around 2010, I decided to literally go back to school. And with my 2-year degree, unfortunately I missed it by about a year. But the credits that I had taken at my 2-year degree weren't in alignment with the current accreditation program that the different 4 years had. So none of my credits transferred. So I started college. Basically, my first course I took was high school algebra. I took a math test, and it's funny because when you're in the industry and you're out of high school a lot, you forget a lot of that basic math, and they
Oh
have
yeah,
you.
out of sight, out of mind for sure.
I took all those classes, and I think I remember doing fairly well. I did calculus and took a lot of those courses in high school. But the reality is when you don't use calculus for over a decade and you're handed a placement test, yeah, you don't do very well on it. And the interesting thing at first, it was very discouraging. I'm like, because I don't need this course or the next course that applied towards this degree I was going. I was like, literally, I'm going for my Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. And it's like, why don't I have to pay for these courses and I don't need them? But when I look back on it in hindsight, it was the best thing I did because again, you forget so much of that just basic math that for me, it was really an enabler to be able to go back, retrain myself on how to do that basic math because it made it a lot easier as I worked through all the difficult calculus and differential equation courses that you take later in engineering. So at that time, it was interesting because I guess many people will call me a glutton for punishment. I waited until I was married and had children, right, and had a full time job.
That's
So
the best time to do it, right?
yeah, right. Yeah, it was. I don't know if I love a challenge or what the reasoning for that was, but anyhow, I did that and had a lot of support. I couldn't have done that without the support network I had with my wife and with my family. And again, I took engineering class, a 30 plus year old freshman. The first 2 years, I took a lot of the coursework at local community colleges. The main reason is the credits are a lot cheaper than a 4-year institution. So I would always recommend anybody looking maybe not to jump into into their actual 4-year college they want to go to, consider trying that community colleges. They're cost effective, and I really like the class sizes are a lot smaller too. And so, like, I took calculus 2 in a class that maybe had 10 people. I needed a little bit extra help, and having 10 people in the class gave you a
As
lot
opposed to
more.
50. Yeah.
Yeah, it allowed a lot more opportunity. The community college teachers are a lot more accessible, I think, than your typical 4-year institution, because your 2-year people or your community college people aren't necessarily doing research like you would in a 4-year institution. So for those that, maybe need a little bit extra help like me when it comes to like calculus and integrals and things like that, that was really helpful to have. So I did that, and then I ended up transferring all that coursework into one of the colleges in the area, University of North Dakota, and they had an accredited, fully online program, which was at the time, I think it was the first of its kind when they came out with this. And the key with engineering is that there are many engineering schools out there, but you have to have the course and the college that you go to for engineering has to be ABET, ABET. It's an accreditation group, and you have to have an ABET accredited degree to take the tests in your state that allow you to eventually become a professional engineer. And a professional engineer, if you see people with the letters PE after their name, that's what that stands for. And that means they are licensed to practice engineering in their state that they're registered in. So for me, that's what I'm going for. My ultimate goal is to be able to take the coursework that enables me to take these tests that I have to pass in order to become a professional engineer. So I did that. It took 7.5 years in total. And again, I couldn't have done it with all the help that I had. I left out a lot of my colleagues. A lot of my colleagues in my current company were really helpful, and from anything from encouragement to support to, you know, some really difficult things that I needed a little help on with some of the homework and things. So again, that was super helpful. So that's kind of where I was at. I got my degree early 2017. And now I'm just in the process of studying and getting all of that studying finished for the 2 tests that you have to take. The first one's called the Fundamentals of Engineering. That's basically it's a 6-hour, 110-point test on the entire, for me, 7.5 years of school. For your traditional student, that's the full 4 years. It's a general overview, but it's a pretty tricky test. Once you take that test, then you go on to take your professional engineer's exam. And that one nowadays is actually focused on the specific trade. So in my case, it would be mechanical, HVAC, thermal engineering. So that's my sort of my last hurdle, if you will. And I think once I get through that, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be going to any more school. I've been in upper, post, college level coursework now for 9.5 years. I think that's enough for one lifetime.
Well, I think you may not go to regular college curriculum, but certainly you never stop learning in this industry.
True.
There's, always
Yeah.
something new and always something that changes. But, I think your story is really important in that there's a lot of ways to get into this industry with a 2-year degree or, some skill. And then, that skill, if you really hone that skill, you can go very far. So for a lot of the trades, a lot of the, vets coming back from service, you don't have to wait 4 years to be a productive, person in this industry. There's lots of ways to get there. And, a lot of companies will pay for that education too. It's not necessarily, and, there's other organizations that pay for that. So Infrastructure Masons has scholarships available, and 7x24 exchange, and, there as is on the security side, but there's lots of organizations that have and sponsor scholarships if your company doesn't, to help offset some of that cost. But, like I said, in this industry, you never stop learning anyway. So,
Right.
There's always that element of learning. So if you had to pick, I know you started talking about how great it was that you like to draw and take stuff apart, and all the way to where you are right now, owning the company, or at least, part of the company. What's your favorite part about this industry? What do you just kind of love about your day?
Yeah, now, so I don't get to do much CAD anymore. I have responsibilities more focused on running the business and getting the projects for tomorrow so that we have work to do tomorrow. But I think the passion I have now is just the people. there's just so many interesting people that you get to deal with as a consultant and doing what I do. Many different industries, people in very different positions. It's just, to me, it's just fascinating to get to know and to be able to work with just such a wide group of really smart people. And I learn more from, the people that I work with than I think they learn from me. And I think that to me is, again, super rewarding.
Yeah, and I think it should be that way. You should surround yourself with people of all different backgrounds and knowledge types and you know education, and then you end up really building that kind of diversity where and we've talked about that on this podcast with some folks. You can't hire somebody that's has a different thought process than you and expect them to adopt your thought process and call that diversity, because there's no inclusion there. You really have to be able to drink in what other people bring to the table, and sometimes what happens is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's a really good point because again, like for us, I mean, we look for, I mean, really, we look for really the approach and the personality first. Like if we're looking at new candidates, and again, the engineering piece of it, for us, a lot easier to train than it is to train approaches and tact and personality, which you can't teach. And we don't look for one specific personality, but we look really for things like positive attitude and again that willingness to learn and the passion for what they do. So again, that's the thing is that again we don't coming to work for us. You don't have to have a 4.0 GPA, right? That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for just the right person because again, we're successful not because of our name. We're not successful because we're the smartest engineers on the planet. We're successful because of our culture, and we're successful because it's a group that works together and gets the job done no matter what.
Yeah, I think, even on the engineering side, just because you have an engineering degree or a PE doesn't mean that you're not going to have to learn on the job, because obviously there's nuances, there's different bits of that, there's different equipment, there's, you know, no possibility, I mean, no end to the learning, no possibility, no end to the learning process is what I meant to say.
Yeah,
Um,
there has not been a day that's gone by in 22 years of doing this I haven't learned something. And I think that's another thing that's really fun about it is you can never stop learning. Like for me, the learning, like I say, largely comes from all the different people that I get to interface with, right? And it's not just those people. There's still the industry has a great network of training opportunities in terms of, like especially in the data center industry, there's institutions, local chapters that have training opportunities. The vendors are really good about, introducing products and with a little bit of sales in there, but we like to focus ours on the ones that are really just focused on the technicals and not a sales pitch why we should buy brand X. So there's a ton of opportunity, but again, for individuals, nobody's ever forced to do any of this. It really takes the individual to say, yes, I want to do that. I want to go to the training opportunities. And generally, those that do go on to do those and elect to take on those training opportunities when they don't have to, those are the ones that generally succeed, at least in what we do.
sure. And I think that's probably true in most industries, as long as you're willing to broaden your horizons and, be better at your craft. Anybody that hones their craft, even if you're a musician, right? You're going to be a better musician if you practice and get better, right?
That's
Learn new
right.
songs, learn new techniques. So I think that really speaks to all of them. Well, Jeff, I have to say, I really appreciate your time this morning. And it was great learning about you and a little bit about what you guys do. And for those listening, like I said, there's lots of different paths to this industry. Jeff certainly has a great story. And, you know, the opportunities are out there. You just have to look for them. So
Yeah.
thanks again, Jeff.
Yeah. Thanks, Carrie. Really enjoy it and appreciate the opportunity to get to do this with you.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Stay tuned for the next one and hope you guys have a great day.